Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I hope everyone is doing okay today. My name is Valentina Kova. I'm the Communications Manager here at Ontario One Call. Thank you so much for joining us for our stakeholder consultation webinar today. We have a packed agenda, so we're going to get started soon. We are going to see a presentation today on the cost recovery model, and it will be followed by a live Q&A session. While we wait a couple more minutes to let everyone join us, I would like to let everyone know that we are recording this webinar and we will be posting it on our website and on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Also, you are welcome to send us your questions at any point during the presentation using the QA button at the top of your screen. We will address the questions at the end of the presentation, and in case we get more questions than time allows, or if they are very specific, we will answer them after the webinar. You are welcome to get in touch with us at consultations@ontarioonecall.ca. I will be putting this address in the questions box in just a minute. A couple more details about the consultations. This consultation period will close on October 10th. You are welcome to submit your feedback via the online form on our website until that day. And I'm going to be putting the link of that page in the question box in a moment. For those who cannot join us today, we will be hosting another consultation webinar like today. That will be on October 2nd at 2 p.m. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to welcome everybody again and also welcome our presenter, Jean Lipin, our Chief Strategy Officer here at Ontario One Call. Welcome, Jean, and good morning.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for making time in your day to kind of listen to us and to have a conversation with us. I promise you that this little event will go by very quickly. My part in terms of the presentation, well, I'll try to get to within 15 to 20 minutes so that we've got a bunch of time at the end to have a conversation and to take your questions. As you expect, our role as a new public safety administrative authority is to ensure that we engage with stakeholders on any changes that we're looking at. And the purpose of today's consultation is to do just that. Valentina, can you tell me if the slide's advancing?
Yes, they are.
Okay, super. Okay, so I won't ask again. I just want to make sure that it's working the way it's supposed to. So the organization that you well know, I mean, everybody on this call well knows this organization, and this organization is transforming. And because of that transformation, we need to ensure that we are providing it with the resources that it needs to execute on the mandate as provisioned in the Act and the regulations. So we're a bit less service-oriented organization of the past and a bit more of a regulator and a public safety administrative authority. And because we have to recover the cost of the execution of our mandate. And the conversation that we would like to have with you today is like, how do we do that best? And of course, we're not pretending that this is fun. We don't expect that the sector is going to applaud the fact that we need to recover the cost of the execution of our mandate. We don't, we're not living in a dreamland. We know that everybody is managing their budgets to the best of their ability, and so are we. And I wanted you to know that we take this work very seriously when it comes to trying to find the savings that are required so that we can reinvest in the business. And so this whole conversation that we hope to have with you today is to get your guidance, to get your thoughts on how best to do this. Because at the end of the day, we need to be strong enough to promote safe excavation and enable and facilitate safe excavation. We need to do our jobs. Just like you. So we need to get your guidance on how best to do that. There is nothing that I want to point out about our mandate that you don't already know, except for in the last number of years, we have changed. So the government has given us the responsibility, if you will, to not only execute on the notification system and the Act of 2012, but also new regulations that make us a public safety administrative authority with enforcement and compliance functions. And because of that, and because of our role to promote safe excavation, we need to invest in the business. There was a report done in 2022 requested by the board to look at the operations of the organization and to make suggestions on how best to invest in the future. And there were a series of recommendations, which included invest in the people and the infrastructure. And when I mean infrastructure, I mean technology, IT, et cetera, but also in our ability to promote safe excavation and our ability to enforce the laws and regulations as it relates to safe excavation. So you won't be surprised to hear that we need to continue to invest in this business. And when you invest, obviously you need to recover the cost of that investment. And so the conversation that we'd like to have with you today is how do we do that right? How do we respect your requirements and how do we continue to promote and enable safe excavation in the province of Ontario? So this is obviously a perspective, right? So we have a perspective as an organization, as management and the employees of Ontario One Call that what we do provides a benefit to the sector. Not only do we provide you with a platform so that you can request locates and you get notifications for people's intention to dig, but we do believe that there are other benefits other than the clarity. There is reporting that you can access. And at the end of the day, the work that we're all doing together is to prevent damages to infrastructure, but primarily injuries to people. So we're trying to protect workers and we're trying to protect infrastructure. If we do that right together, then we all succeed. Everybody gets to go home at night. But we do believe in this instance that there are benefits for all sector participants, including LSPs, excavators, and UIOs. So let me talk a little bit about what we are looking at in terms of fee changes. You know that over the course of the last 3 years, we've increased fees by 20% year over year. And that obviously is a challenge to the sector, but also you've embraced it in the fact that you endorsed it back in 2023. We've been able to execute on that. And I think that what you're seeing in terms of industry performance is quite substantive. We moved from being in the 40% range as an industry in terms of performance of locate requests to closer to 85% today. And because of that, we need to continue to invest in the business. And for that purpose, we are looking at increasing fees in 27 and 28 of somewhere between 5 and 10%. That's the Locate Notification System Act fees, not System Act, but the assessment fees. And then we're looking at establishing a new minimum fee for all UIOs, somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $5,000. And that look at it as registration, setup, account fees. So we need to set you up as a UIO in our systems so that we are prepared to deliver on notifications should somebody want to dig around your infrastructure. We have to be set up for that. And that is regardless of your size, regardless of where you live in the province of Ontario, we need to be set up for that. And so that work has to be recovered in terms of its cost. And so we're looking at establishing that basic amount for everyone. Many of you have benefited from the services of the DL program, and we have been, studying it and looking at it. And at this time, most of the use of the DL program is in larger projects. And so we're going to stick with the fee at the higher end, if you will, at 15K. And then in terms of other service offerings, we are going to continue to ensure that when we put another service offering out there, clearances, filters, suppressions, et cetera, and education, that we are actually offering it at true cost recovery, because in many cases, this has not been the case. Let me talk to you quickly about, and Valentina, I'll just do a check-in. Are there any hands up or anything like that people want to interrupt or have a conversation around?
Not yet.
Okay, super. So, based on feedback from our Stakeholder Advisory Council and from conversations that we've been having in preparation for today, we did we did think that it was critical that we provide some clarity on how we might tier certain fees, particularly as it relates to the minimum fee. We recognize, let me say this, we understand and we've seen reports and recent analysis of the challenges at the municipal level in terms of just underfunding and the criticality of services and figuring out ways to deliver those. We're no different. We're actually much like municipalities in that we're trying to figure out ways to deliver this service at the most affordable price. But we recognize that there are size differences. And so we are looking for some feedback from you on whether or not this kind of approach would work for municipalities. And we'll add that the same is true for small, medium, and large size businesses. So we're talking about non-municipal UIOs who have a base of revenue or a number of employees. So we're looking for a bit of guidance from you on how we would stratify this for businesses that are not municipalities. All this data comes from StatsCan, so it's not like we didn't invent it with some kind of angle on it. This is just StatsCan data that we're trying to use as a basis for conversation. We'll come back to that. So, look, we're trying to approach this. So we've got a strategic plan that many of you, particularly those folks who have committed to coming onto this call today, you likely know us pretty well. You know that we went through a process not too long ago to establish a strategic plan for the 3 years, and we're in the first of the 3 years right now. We committed to not only delivering on our mandate, but also ensuring that this organization is sustainable from a funding perspective. And that's what we're trying to get at now is we've had some success in the past in terms of investing in the business through fee increases. So that's one thing. But we've also benefited from an investment from government who recognized that as we transition into a public safety administrative authority, we needed to invest in the organization, in the technology and the people that support it. If we are not able to recover the cost of those investments because the investment from government was time limited, and so it runs out next year, we need to ensure that we continue to invest in the business. And when I say that, I don't mean invest in a way that is unsustainable or that you wouldn't do in the businesses that you run. I mean it in a way that we've elevated our game, or we believe we have, and we're always open to your feedback, but we've elevated our game. We're more responsive to the needs of the sector, and we're delivering the services that you desire. But we still would like to invest to improve what we've got, to make sure that we maintain the investments that we've made, and that we continue to grow in your trust and in the satisfaction of the sector. And so one thing that we wanted to say is, like, there are certain risks of not proceeding with fee changes, right? You may say, well, too bad for you guys, figure yourselves out, and that's fair ball. But we have been very cost focused. You may know that we did do some restructuring last year, and we're always looking at the bottom line. We're always trying to find ways to invest and to secure, better performance where we can. So it's not like we're just expecting the sector to just invest and trust us. We are doing the work that you would expect from a management team, from a board, to try to perfect the offering that we have in the sector and act as the public safety administrative authority that has enforcement and compliance requirements. So we're not going to give up on those things, but I did want to point out that, there are risks to not proceeding. So in terms of next steps, as Valentina pointed out at the beginning, there are consultations ongoing now. We hope to wrap those up in October. You can provide any feedback that you see fit through our website. There's a dedicated email, etc. Once we've received your feedback, we take that feedback to the board, and then we would take that to the ministry as well, with the hope that decisions are made and that we proceed sometime in 2026. And then we will ensure that any decisions made are well communicated much in advance of January 1st, 2027. I know that's not what the slide says, but we are going to ensure that we communicate with you well in advance of January 1st, 2027. And that's a commitment that we make to you today, that you'll have plenty of time to prepare, uh, recognizing obviously nobody wants to pay more for anything in this world today. We understand that. We get it, but we do want to be able to deliver on a mandate. We want to deliver to you the services that you desire and that you need to be successful in your businesses. And because we have that desire, we are going to find ways to recover the cost of our investments, and we hope to be able to work with you on that over the course of the next few months. So I'm going to put up a slide that just gives you some data on how to contact us and how to ask questions, but I know that the floor will be open. I'll leave this up for a minute. Valentina and the rest of the team, if you want to begin the process of asking or seeking questions. I think, I mean, I'm not going to give myself a pat on the back, but I tried to keep it as tight as I could. And at 11:20 or so, I think we're in pretty good shape here so that we can have a really good conversation. If folks on the phone, sorry, folks online are okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen so that I can actually see you and the good folks who have made it today to this conversation.
Thank you, Jean. Just reminding everybody that I put the website link in the Q&A box, and also our email address where folks can reach out to us. I'm gonna bring up on screen our leadership team, Anthony Martinello, our Chief Financial Officer, Samantha Pinto, our Chief Regulatory Officer, Katie Gottsman, our Chief Business Solution Officer, and Mohammed Regabi, our Chief Digital Officer. And I'm going to ask our stakeholder engagement team to start with the questions.
Thank you, Valentina. We're getting a couple of questions that are along the similar scope. So we'll start off with this. It's how are fees established for underground infrastructure owners, and what is the current assessment structure?
I'll take a first swipe at it, and maybe Anthony and my colleagues will jump in. So the history of the organization was you looked at the totality of the cost of running the business, and you assessed all existing users of the business a certain percentage of that cost. That's how it worked. That was the history or the legacy of the organization. And while that did work, it didn't allow for investment in the future. It was always backwards looking. So you were looking at the number of notifications from the previous year, and you would assess the budget that was approved by the board to that number of notifications. And what we're trying to do now is actually recover the cost of the investments we need to make to meet your wants and needs. So obviously, as an organization, there are certain things that we need to invest in: people, technology, promotion, programs, education, et cetera. So we have a finite number of things that we want to invest in that we think meets our mandate. But then we need to recover the cost of that. And oftentimes we have to invest above what the notification system provided us for the year before. I don't know, Anthony, if I'm doing a fair job, but I'll hand it to our CFO.
Yeah, Jean, you did do a good job. The only thing I would add to that is for those UIOs that had notifications in the last 12 months that were below a 500 threshold, they were not assessed a fee. And that has been part of the fee structure for a number of years. But as presented earlier, we want to change that, and we want to change the fees not only for those that are not paying, but also introduce the minimum fee. So.
Okay, Jean, we have two questions related to the mechanics of registration and stratification. One is, do the registration and setup fees only apply to new owners, or is this an annual for those of us who are already registered with one call? And then the second question is with respect to the stratification, is any consideration being given to single tier versus two-tiered municipalities?
I'll try to take it, and then again my colleagues can jump in. So currently we don't have the legislative responsibility to register folks, right? That's a compunction of the future perhaps, but we do register UIOs as part of our system so that we have your data, so that when we get a request to dig around your infrastructure, we can inform you. So I guess in theory, that's a form of registration. But we intend to have a fee against that work on a go-forward basis for everyone. Now, what we've tried to signal in this work is that we realize that size, I don't want to use the old stuff, but there are different sizes of organizations. And for that reason, maybe stratification, i.e., a smaller fee for a smaller municipality and a medium-sized fee for a medium-sized municipality and a medium-sized business makes more sense. So we'd like to get some feedback from you on that, either written or today. And then to your question on stratification, we're using the data that we've got from Stats Canada. We didn't use the tiering, but if your feedback is tiering is better based on single tier, multiple tier, or two tiers, then please provide us with that counsel. But we thought oftentimes this work is very close to municipal officials who are executing on projects and executing on locates and relationships with locate service providers and other underground infrastructure owners. So it's very on the ground business. So we're trying to keep this as close to where the business is actually happening as possible. But if your guidance is take it up a level, then we'll listen. I invite my colleagues to clarify if I've stepped outside the lines.
Okay, thank you, Jean. We'll move on to the next question here. As an excavator, when submitting locate requests to Ontario One Call, will we have to pay for this in the future, or are these fees only for underground infrastructure owners?
Yeah, I can go, or Anthony, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so the topic today is just for underground infrastructure owners. That is the focus of this webinar. The topic about excavators is being discussed, but at this point now, we're not consulting on that at this point, but it is part of the future scope of this. We intend to come forward when we're ready to deliver that consultation to the folks. And again, it's about it's about our role in fulfilling of the mandate as a public service authority administrative, and also on the fact that we want to have a cost recovery model that is fair. So those that are utilizing the systems, the tools, or services, that the cost recovery is apportioned in a fair way. So.
I'm going to throw it to Sam in a second, but there is something I'd like to add to what Anthony said, and that is that when we talk to excavators today, there appears to be a willingness to contribute to the success of this organization. That hasn't been asked for in the past, but as an organization, the things that we want to deliver for the entirety of the sector is going to provide benefits for excavators. So if we do a unified mapping strategy for the province of Ontario, that will have benefits for the entire sector, and we believe that it will have benefits for excavators. When we invest in enforcement and compliance, the effect is that it has benefits for excavators, not directly, but indirectly through faster performance of locate delivery. So there are benefits, excuse me, today in the way that we operate, and we intend to invest further so that industry performance gets better, that our technology is better, and that serves both. I'll say both. There are three sides to this coin when you include LSPs. We think that the investments that we're making actually create benefits for the entire sector. So we have a belief that that is something that we need to consider. We're not there yet, and that's not what we're consulting on today. But um, we don't want to pretend that we're not thinking about that. I think it's important that we're transparent and honest about that. Sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, thanks so much, Jean. Just to build on what Jean and Anthony said, to answer the question very specifically, I think it's the second part of the question. The legislation does prohibit any charges related to locate requests. So I just wanted to be clear that has not changed. That prohibition is still in effect, and that this consultation is very narrow to UIO fees. Thanks so much, Jean and Anthony.
Thank you. A bit of a different angle here, Jean. For some underground infrastructure owners, particularly in the home construction realm, they may only get a few locate requests per year. So that means that would translate into having one or two station codes only. So the question is Ontario One Call taking a bit of a risk in asking for owners of this type to pay additional fees?
I think the flip of that is the risk is we're not ready when somebody wants to dig around your infrastructure, and that's not acceptable. And we wouldn't have the flexibility not to be ready. We have to be ready. So when somebody wants to dig around your infrastructure, we need to be prepared for that. We need to have done the homework in advance. We need to know who to inform. We need to have email addresses and phone numbers, etc. We need to be set up. So whether you're a small or medium-sized municipality, we still have to do the same amount of work to be ready to execute on our mandate. And I mean, I think everybody would agree on this call, and I'm not trying to throw platitudes onto the table, but we're all invested in safe excavation to protect people and infrastructure. And because we're all invested, we all have to invest. We're going to invest on your behalf. We're going to invest the time and energy and expertise to make sure we do our jobs right. But it's not free. Like it's just not free. And we don't want to pretend anything is free. The work that Katie and Mo do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that the locate requests that are submitted actually turn into notifications, that is done in the most simplest of fashions and allows you to execute on your business in the fastest way possible. You have to invest in that. Those people required to do that work. And so people and technology. So and the expectations of the sector continue to rise. So as new technology is introduced in the field, the expectation is that one call is actually at that level. And so we want to be at that level, but we have to invest to do that.
Thank you, Jean. We've got some questions here looking just for some clarification on this proposed fee structure, on whether or not, where the stratification comes into play, especially for those municipalities who are already paying fees, and how that might compare in the future.
I feel like I'm talking too much. Anthony, do you want to take that, or one of my other colleagues?
Yeah, sure. I'll say that. So, in going through this proposal on some of these new fees, we thought about different types of fee structures. Does it apply to one? Does it apply to all? Does it apply in sort of, stratification platforms or thresholds? And we do want to hear from you, and we do want to hear how you think one or some or even something new may benefit you or the industry as a whole. So with that being said, I will say that, again, it is a cost recovery model. So there is no intent to, make this complex or take more than what we need. But those UIOs that are paying, will continue to pay into the fee program, but we will add, some new wrinkles. One is, the assessment fee will go up, marginally with, between 5 and 10%. And we're adding this new thing about a minimum fee that would apply to all UIOs. And again, Jean had touched upon why that is needed. So there are some UIOs that are not paying into the system, quite a few, and that is going to change. So those that are not paying, they will be either touched by the minimum fee, or if they are, have a higher number of notifications in the year, they'll have the minimum fee and also the assessment fee. So the intent is that everyone has an amount to pay, but it's done fairly and consistently. So.
We have a question here about the assessment fee again. Ontario One Call increased the assessment fee by 20% over a 3-year period. Why a 5 to 10% increase all of a sudden?
Sorry, can you just repeat that, Christian?
Ontario One Call has already increased the assessment fee by 20% over a 3-year period.
Right.
Why is there now an additional increase being proposed?
Yeah, so I'll take the first stab at that. So it is correct that the assessment fee has been gone up over the last 3 years, or 3 years, including next year, 20% a year. That has brought the fee around to totally around somewhere around $17 million per year. But the operating budget on a cost recovery basis here is higher than that. So there is a need to increase the fee again. The budget that we're looking at, or the forecast, I should say, that we're looking at for next year and the 2 years subsequent to that is, somewhere in the neighborhood of around 20 to 25 million. So that being said, the increase in the assessment fee needs to happen, and the introduction of the new minimum fee is also our way of making sure that the fees are fair. So.
Just add to what my colleague said, that what we are trying to do is respond to the desires of the sector. We're not inventing, new programs and new offerings that the sector hasn't already said we need that. And I would say principally when we've had consultations and when we talk to the board and when we talk to stakeholders, and we benefit greatly from the Stakeholder Advisory Council that many of you know and appreciate, is their guidance to us is you need to keep investing so that you're meeting the expectations of the sector. And you've upped your game in the last number of years. We upped our game in the last couple of years, and we need to be fair. With the help of the ministry, we have been able to invest in not only laying a stronger foundation for the business, but also in upping our game across all spheres. And now our game, and I use the sports analogy of our game, is higher, but we can't now not invest in keeping it there. And in fact, some would argue that we need to keep moving forward progressively and continue to improve. So the good thing about that is our performance is better, we think, overall. But the hard part of that is we need to recover the cost of that investment. So that's the the less fun side of it, if you will. But that's our intention as a management team and as a board. I'm not speaking for the board, but I know in the conversations we've had with the board, it's like, keep going. You guys are doing a better job and you need to keep going. And so that's our intention. That is reflected in our strategic plan, and that is reflected in our annual business plans. Is our intention is to keep our foot on the gas and to meet the expectations of the industry, because, and I'll say this last thing, the provincial government has made big commitments to build infrastructure in this province. We have to be ready to meet the bell. And And as you do, I mean, everybody's in this together, but we have to be able to do what we need to do to be successful and to ensure that folks are digging safely. And for that reason, we need to continue to invest in the business, and that's what we intend to do.
Another question, Jean. What specific steps are being taken to actively reduce costs rather than simply recovering operating expenses?
We're gonna, so that I don't take up all the steam on this call, offer that question to any of my colleagues.
So I'll start. Efficiency and making sure that our processes are as efficient as possible, that requires some investment in new tools and systems, right? So as we do that, so I know that Mo is building out a digital footprint or platform that is moving in that direction where new investments in systems and tools will actually pay big dividends down the line in terms of, utilizing systems rather than having manual efforts or increased headcount or whatnot. So the intent is that we are focused on driving efficiency, but that also requires some investments up front. So.
A question here about Ontario One Call's administrative penalty powers. Is there an opportunity for administrative penalties to be expedited faster or easier for those who are digging without locates? Giving fines out of this nature would enable Ontario One Call to generate a considerable amount of money without having to raise fees on underground infrastructure owners.
Happy to take that one. Thanks for the question, Christian. So administrative penalties, I just want to be clear, they're not meant to generate revenue for the organization. They're meant to address non-compliance with our legislative framework. And the funds collected through the issuance of an administrative penalty is only allowed to be used for specific purposes, and those purposes are outlined in our legislation. So things like education or increasing awareness in a specific area where we've noticed a lot of non-compliance. So while we see the administrative penalty as a really strong tool as an evolving regulator, it's not one that's meant to be used as a revenue generating scheme.
Thank you, Sam. We touched on this topic a bit earlier, but we've got a question here about the risk of increasing fees that would result in an increase in damages and reduced safety for workers. I think we can just hammer this point home one more time, Jean.
I think, I mean, this is a personal view. We're all in this together. And so if we fund this little business well, we're going to prevent people from having injury, hitting infrastructure. And we're going to also meet the ambitious goals of the province in terms of building infrastructure, building housing, et cetera. So it's kind of like we're not doing this by ourselves. And, to Sam's point earlier, we're also not using administrative penalties to try to solve our financial issues. We're trying to build a little organization that delivers a service that helps the entire sector move forward. And we do that in a way that you kind of look at us and go, you know what, the monies that we pay to those folks, they use it for the right purposes and they're helping the whole sector advance. We don't want to be a barrier. We don't want to be seen as a burden, but we do have we think an effective role to play in the sector, and we're going to try to do that. But we need to recover the cost of that investment. And unfortunately, we have to do that within the realm of the legislation, which is with UIOs. lucky for you, I guess, that you're covered under the legislation, but it allows us to have a conversation with folks who actually have infrastructure underground that needs to be protected, and who often also have workers who are working on that infrastructure or around it. And so we have this job to do together, and that's to protect both people and infrastructure. And for that reason, we're going to continue to have a conversation around what's the right level of fees to execute on our mandate.
Bit of a different angle here, Jean. Your presentation speaks of budgetary pressures, reduced investment, or the risk of reduced investment, and also the risk that Ontario One Call will not be able to fulfill its mandate without a change in its cost recovery model. But Ontario One Call is also hosting a conference in October, and in the summer, the person asking a question says, "I saw your ads all over the place."
Well, that's a super fair question, but I'll take it, and if my colleagues don't mind, I'll try to do this question justice. The purpose of our conference and trade show is to connect with stakeholders. And so far, based on our experience last year, the feedback that we received on hosting a conference and trade show was I don't know, but I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but it was very positive. It's like you need to do this so that the sector can get together to talk about big things that are going on in the sector. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that the program that we've put together for the conference that we're hosting in a few weeks' time in Blue Mountain is better than last year again. It's exceptional. And I encourage every one of you that's on this call to come. That was my little commercial. But I don't want to take away from the seriousness of the question. We have to invest in generating awareness of your need to click before you dig in a substantive way, because our research, so we do research every year to inform our campaigns and the development of campaigns. The research shows that people still don't know what their responsibility is. It's still very low. It's not low amongst professionals like you who are on this call, who know the system, know your responsibilities under the Act, etc. Those folks who interact with us on a regular basis, you know who we are, you know what your responsibilities are. But this province is very vast. And there's a bunch of folks who don't know what their responsibilities are. And for that reason, we have to invest in the kinds of campaigns that some of you have seen along the 400 and 401. And I can tell you that, we are doing the best that we can with limited resources, but they're not unlimited. The percentage of spend on marketing in totality is less than 5% of the organization. So it's not like we're spending more than we've got. I hope that helps. But I invite my colleagues as well to jump in.
Thank you, Jean. We have a question here that relates more to digital and operational transformation. Has Ontario One Call explored investments in AI or automation to reduce the manual ticket processing costs? And are there technology upgrades that could lower call volume and operational overhead long term?
So I'll take the first stab at this. We are rolling out our first artificial intelligence proof of concept in 2024. We also rolled out our generative AI policy and guardrails that we have put in place to ensure that we roll out AI in a responsible manner, and we ensure that the trust of the stakeholder community is going to be maintained for the organization. With artificial intelligence and any of the digital improvements that we are making, what we are focused on is ensuring that the services that are delivered are better, more seamless, and address the needs that the organization has. Jean talked about the expectations of the industry increasing. We've talked about, as an example, various underground infrastructure owners or contractors having their own ticketing system and wanting to interact with Ontario One Call through modern ways, through application programming interface, direct pipelines, as opposed to having to manually go through the portal, etc. Those things are definitely under development, but again, as it was said earlier, these improvements do have costs associated with them. You all work on capital projects. Think of this as a capital investment that we're making up front. Additional investments definitely is needed on that front. But what is extremely important is when with any net new service, any net new microservice that we roll out, there is a maintenance element associated with it, and that inevitably, increases the cost downstream. I think writ large, if you look at this, the benefit outweighs the cost when you look at the what the sector writ large takes away from the service that they're offering. But going back to the comment around the use of artificial intelligence, as I said, we are rolling this out. There are a lot of interesting news that you're going to be hearing about over the next few months. We're going to be talking about it, as John mentioned. We're going to have the trade show. We're going to talk about this at the trade show. That's one of the reasons we have a trade show. We're going to talk about the product and the services that we are developing and what we are going to be rolling out thereafter. But again, I want to go back to on any of these services, we're going to be very diligent. We're going to be very careful. We're going to ensure that what we roll out is ethical, is going to meet the needs of the sector. We're not going to jump into any net new technology and roll it out without the right guardrails. But for sure, all of these items that you mentioned are what we are working on right now. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything to that, or
Sure, I'll just note that perhaps a little less known is that Ontario One Call used to handle the majority of our requests by the phone. So when I started at Ontario One Call, we had about 30%, 37% of that come through the web, and today it's about 95%. So we've made great strides throughout the years to move that manual component away from a call into the web self-service type of scenario. And this has also translated into the sizing and alteration of our teams. So to answer that question, that's definitely been huge strides to make to reduce call volumes, in particular related to locate request submission, provide people self-service tools, provide people with the ability to showcase specifically where they're excavating, giving more information and a greater quality of information in the long run, reducing interpretation by through phone conversation as to the excavation activities that are occurring. What remains on the phone are support for our users. As Ontario One Call changes and evolves, the technology will change. We have various demographics of users. So we have homeowners who are may or may not be comfortable with technology. And even though we ask everybody to use the web, that differs from individual to individual. And of course, we have our professional contractors who are typically more confident in that. So with this, that means that we still provide a level of support to ensure that people continue to request locates and they continue to do the right and lawful thing throughout the province. And we ensure that we're not pushing anybody away from it because they may be feeling a little bit less confident in their abilities online. So we have to always balance these subjects and ensure that people are safe and continue to receive their locates and get their locates.
Thank you. Question here regarding how the fees will be implemented. Will the proposed increase at the end of the consultation period be presented to and voted on by the members?
I think there was a slide that presented the timeline. So once the consultation is over and we've assessed all the feedback, the intent is to give a long lead time so that members can prepare for any fee changes. And I think the slide mentioned 60 days. We plan to give you more than 60 days. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 6 months advance notice, which hopefully is sufficient time. And with respect to, sorry, can you repeat the question, Sarah?
Yeah, the question is wondering whether or not the proposed changes will be voted on by the members of Ontario One Call.
So there is no vote by the members on fees. It is decided on with the board, but we are doing this because we want to make sure that we have a robust and comprehensive stakeholder engagement with you folks, so that you're able to your comments, your opinions are shared internally with ourselves and also with the board. So the intent is that we do this right, we do it with good due diligence, and that the board has the full information at hand. So,
Pam, is there something you'd like to add?
No, and Anthony covered it. I just wanted to hit on the voting aspect, and Anthony captured that. So thank you, Jean.
Jean, there were a few questions that were somewhat duplicative on the subject of stratification and how that might look. So one thing I think we would really like to encourage is a big part of this consultation, as John indicated, was around getting input on that, what best works for the parties in question in terms of how the fee might be stratified. So we really encourage those of you who do have ideas, as Jean noted at the outset of the presentation, to contribute those to the online consultation, or also there's an opportunity to take part on the October session as well to provide input there.
Thanks, Christian. Are we at the end of the questions submitted?
Yes, as I noted, there were a few others that came in around that same theme of stratification, but I think within the context of the presentation, we've addressed that thus far.
Thank you. Well, let me try to wrap it up then, if my colleagues agree. So as a management team, as an organization, and in collaboration with the board, our responsibility to the sector is that we do things in a sustainable fashion, but that we also deliver a service and an offering and act as the Public Safety Administrative Authority, therefore the regulator in the sector, in a certain way, in a professional manner, in a transparent manner, etc. We're trying to do that, but we understand that a conversation around fee increase or the establishment of a new fee, we get that that's not fun. Nobody wants to talk about that. We get it. But we do want to make sure that this little business, this little organization is invested in so it can deliver against your expectations, and that it does so in a way that's modern, that it's risk-based, and that delivers true benefits to you in the sector. And for those reasons, we're having these conversations. We don't expect folks to go, this is great, we want to hand over a check. We don't expect that. We're not unrealistic in that way. But at the same time, we do believe we have a role to promote safe excavation, to facilitate and enable fast locate requests into notifications that allow folks to execute on their projects and execute in a way that's safe. So we have a role, and we take it very seriously. We don't take ourselves that seriously, but we do take our jobs and our responsibilities very seriously. And so we're attempting to engage with you through this webinar. We're going to do it again. We're open to whatever feedback you've got, either written or by way of another meeting. We are desperately trying to ensure that we talk to as many people as possible in this small window. But we do want to ensure that when you reach out to us, we're ready to act. When you want to engage with us, there are professionals at the other end of technology, phone or otherwise, that can act on some of the requests that you have to ensure that safe excavation is happening in the province. So to do that, we need to be set up. And that's where the kind of the, let's call it the base fee, the account fee, that's where that all comes in, is that's the basics to make sure that we're set up. And then we have to execute on the work. And we expect, albeit we've been told that volume is down this year, we expect volume to rise over the next few years. There's a lot of pent up energy and capital waiting to be deployed. we expect that that's going to come to us in some way. And we also we're not just sitting kind of on our laurels trying to execute on the business of the past. We're trying to move the business forward with technology, with mapping, et cetera. So we're not just sitting kind of trying to protect the little bit of business that we've got today. We are looking at a way to add further value in the sector. And we do take our responsibilities as both promoters of safe excavation and of the folks who have to enforce and seek compliance in the sector. We take those responsibilities seriously. And to do that, we have to have professionals and we have to have programs that actually do the job. So we hope that when you kind of on balance think this through, that it makes sense to continue to invest in us. And we are wide open to working with you directly if you've got questions or contributions to make. We're open to that conversation, and we look forward to having those conversations with you. And look, you spent an hour with us, and we really appreciate it. You know, we're happy to see you again on October 2nd, and if not, wish you a terrific rest of day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.